to start, we're going to base coat our cup using the pop-up color purple. If you sand your cups beforehand, you can do that before this step. I don't. It doesn't make a difference to me. So I'm just going to do a thin, even layer of this purple paint, make sure that it's spread out. If you get streaks, that's okay. It's going to be completely covered in glitter, so it won't be noticeable. So just go ahead and do a thin, even layer of that paint, and then don't forget the bottom as well. Once you let that paint dry for about 15 minutes, we're going to mix up just 5 milliliters each bar epoxy, and we're going to apply our glitter using the epoxy method. So here I'm only applying just a small amount of that epoxy, just enough to cover the entire tumbler. You don't want to oversaturate this, otherwise that glitter will become dull and you'll see spots in your epoxy and glitter. So you really only need just a small amount of that epoxy, get it over the entire tumbler, don't forget the bottom, and then you're just going to sprinkle your glitter covering the entire cup. Make sure to tap off that excess glitter as it's not needed. So once you're done applying all of your glitter, just tap the cup. If you're using our cup chucks, that should be simple enough to do. You'll just hold it on your PVC and then give it a tap a couple of times to get rid of that excess glitter. Once you've let that cure, we're going to mix up another 10 milliliters each part epoxy for this. You may need 15 depending on which epoxy you're using. And we're just going to spread that over the entire cup. This coat doesn't have to be thick, so that's perfectly fine. So just spread it over the entire cup. Make sure you don't have any dry spots. Don't forget the bottom. Now what we're going to do while that epoxy is still wet, so we're going to shake up our silver alcohol ink and our shimmer purple alcohol ink. And then we're just going to drop each one onto the cup in different spots of the cup. There's no specific pattern or variation that you can do this in. For this step, you can add as little or as much ink as you want. So once you start adding those spots, you'll see that it'll start spreading through the epoxy. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take a toothpick or a popsicle stick or a rubber spatula, and you're just going to drag the inks up and down the cup to kind of get that look that we're going for. So this part of the tutorial is going to be completely up to you as far as design wise go. You can add as little or as much ink as you want, and you can also design it and swirl it as much or as little as you want. So one thing that I do here is I'm going to spray some alcohol onto it, and that's going to help get the glitter moving also, so it looks more like this once you've added a little bit more ink and gone through a couple of times with that toothpick. So you can repeat this process by adding more ink as much as you want until you're happy with the design, and then you're just going to let that cure. So next we're going to add our clear cast decals. So in the crate you'll have received a sheet with a couple of different designs and then 2 pattern sheets. So for this design I chose this specific one because it works best with the cup style. Now because it has a darker background, what I'm actually going to do so it's able to show through more, as it does have a transparent background, it is clear, so it'll take the colors of whatever base you're putting it on. I'm going to use a little bit of that silver ink and I'm going to just dab it onto a little makeup sponge and then apply that directly to the clear cast just so that silver shines through more. When you're applying the ink, just make sure you don't cover the entire clear cast because it does get rid of some of that stickiness from the actual clear cast. So leave the edges exposed. Those don't need to show through with that silver. That way you can still apply it easily to your cup. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my pattern clear casts and I'm just going to cut out a few random of the images, just trim it along. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just know that the edges, if you do use the silver alcohol ink, they will show through a little bit more. Those are easily able to cover up, but just know when you're cutting them out, if you cut with the jagged edges like I am, those will be exposed if you use the silver alcohol ink. Once I've applied them to my cup, I'm just going to go over around the edges and use that same silver ink to try and hide some of those edges so they aren't as harsh. This part of the tutorial is completely optional, so I am using Nice and Thick, which was not provided in your crate. However, if you did receive one of our previous crates, you might still have some of this around. So I decided to add drips to my cup just to give it a little extra flair. So I'm going to mix up my epoxy, which I already have 5 milliliters each part, and then I'm going to add Nice and Thick, and then I'm also going to add black alcohol ink with a shimmer. Once you have your epoxy to the level of thickness that you are wanting, I'm just going to go around the edge of my cup and then I'm just going to apply my drips. Now, this method that I did here, so I did not apply that much of my Nice and Thick, so these drips did go a little bit further. I did use artist resin as well, so it didn't harden as quick as fast set normally would. So you'll see at the end results here, my black drips that I did go a little bit longer and they were a little bit thinner as they weren't as thick as the green drips that I did on my cup. So that's just one thing to keep in mind when you're working with these drip style cups. Okay, so for our lid topper, you'll see we've designed a new product. So this topper already has the design built into the topper. So now we're essentially just going to decorate it. So included in your box is going to be a tea light. You can enter this in before or after we decorate it. It's really just up to you. So to insert the light, you're just going to push in the tea light directly into the slot made for it in the topper. It should be a snug fit, so once you put it back in, it is going to be kind of hard to get out, which is what we designed it for. You're still able to change the battery if needed from the bottom of the topper. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to decorate using the CC black UV resin. This was not included in your box, but you can decorate this topper however you like. You can add colorants to UV resin, or you can just use regular artist resin or fast set, whichever UV or regular resin you choose to use, and then you can add whichever colorants. This is pretty resistant, so you're able to add any sort of colorant or mica or alcohol inks to this and it should show. Now the layer lines will show through as it is 3D printed, but that shouldn't be a problem once you decorate it. So when working with the UV resin, it's best to work in layers. So I'm going to apply my UV resin just in different sections and then cure it one section at a time. So for this, I'm using the black UV resin, and then I'm also going to use a green glow powder as well as a dry pigment from CC DIY. Once you have your topper decorated to your liking, you'll just simply insert the magnets to the top of your lid, and then you'll be able to connect your lid topper to your lid and then make it a fully removable topper.